Zechariah kind of ends like a movie trailer for the end of the world, except it ends with hope instead of horror. So, let's get into that. And we'll be finishing up Zechariah today. We are in chapter 12, and we'll go through chapter 14. Zechariah 12. A pronouncement, the word of the Lord concerning Israel, a declaration of the Lord, who stretched out the heavens, laid the foundation of the earth, and formed the spirit of man within him. Look, I will make Jerusalem a cup that causes staggering for the peoples who surround the city. The siege against Jerusalem will also involve Judah. On that day I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who try to lift it will injure themselves severely. When the nations of the earth gather against her, on that day, this is the Lord's declaration. I will strike every horse with a panic and its rider with madness. I will keep a watchful eye on the house of Judah, but strike all the horses of the nations with blindness. Then each of the leaders of Judah will think to himself, the residents of Jerusalem are my strength, through the Lord of the armies, their God. On that day I will make the leaders of Judah like a fire pot in a wood pile, like a flaming torch among sheaves. They will consume all the peoples around them on the right and the left, while Jerusalem continues to be inhabited on its site. In Jerusalem, the Lord will save the tents of Judah first, so that the glory of David's house and the glory of Jerusalem's residents may not be greater than that of Judah. On that day, the Lord will defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that on that day, the one who is weakest among them will be like David on that day, and the house of David will be like God, like the angel of the Lord before them. On that day I will set out to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. Then I will pour out a spirit of grace and prayer on the house of David and the residents of Jerusalem, and they will look at me, whom they pierce. They will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child, and weep bitterly for him as one weeps for a firstborn. On that day the mourning in Jerusalem will be as great as the mourning of Hadad Rimmon in the plain of Megiddo. The land will mourn, every family by itself. The family of David's house will be house by itself, and their women by themselves. The family of Nathan's house by itself, and their women by themselves. The family of Levi's house by itself, and their women by themselves. The family of Shimei by itself, and their women by themselves. All the remaining families, every family by itself, and their women by themselves. Chapter 13. On that day, a fountain will be opened for the house of David and for the residents of Jerusalem, to wash away sin and impurity. On that day, this is the declaration of the Lord of armies. I will remove the names of the idols from the land, and they will no longer be remembered. I will banish the prophets and the unclean spirit from the land. If a man still prophesies, his father and his mother who bore him will say to him, you cannot remain alive, because you have spoken a lie in the name of the Lord. When he prophesies, his father and his mother who bore him will pierce him through. On that day every prophet will be ashamed of his vision. When he prophesies, they will not put on a hairy cloak in order to deceive. He will say, I am not a prophet. I worked the land, for a man purchased me as a servant since my youth. If someone asks him, what are these wounds on your chest? Then he will answer, I received the wounds in the house of my friends. Sword awake against my shepherd, against the man who is my associate. This is the declaration of the Lord of armies. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. I will turn my hand against the little ones in the whole land. This is the Lord's declaration. 2/3 will be cut off and die, but a third will be left in it. I will put this third through the fire. I will refine them as silver is refined, and test them as gold is tested. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, they are my people, and they will say, the Lord is our God. Chapter 14. Look, a day belonging to the Lord is coming, when the plunder taken from you will be divided in your presence. I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem for battle. The cry will be captured, the houses looted, and the woman raped. Half the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be removed from the city. Then the Lord will go out to fight against those nations as he fights on a day of battle. On that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. The Mount of Olives will be split in half from east to west, forming a huge valley, so that half the mountain will move to the north and half to the south. You will flee by my mountain valley. The valley of the mountains will extend to Azal. You will flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of King Uzziah of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. On that day there will be no light. The sunlight and moonlight will diminish. It will be a unique day known only to the Lord, without day or night, but there will be light at evening. On that day living water will flow out from Jerusalem, half of it toward the eastern sea and the other half toward the western sea. In summer and winter alike, on that day the Lord will become king over the whole earth, the Lord alone, and his name alone. All the land from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, will be changed into a plain, but Jerusalem will be raised up and will remain on its site from the Benjamin gate to the place of the first gate, to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananel to the royal wine presses. People will live there, and never again will there be a curse of complete destruction, so Jerusalem will dwell in security. This will be the plague with which the Lord strikes all the people who have warred against Jerusalem. Their flesh will rot while they stand on their feet, their eyes will rot on their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. On that day a great panic from the Lord will be among them, so that each will seize the hand of another, and the hand of one will rise against the other. Judah will also fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the surrounding nations will be collected, gold, silver, and clothing in great abundance. The same plague as the previous one will strike the horses, mules, camels, donkeys, and all the animals that are in those camps. Then all the survivors from the nations that came against Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord of armies, and to celebrate the festival of shelters. Should any of the families of the earth not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of armies, rain will not fall on them. Sorry, I got distracted. I thought I had an important text, but it was not. And if people of Egypt will not go up and enter, then rain will not fall on them. This will be the plague the Lord inflicts on the nations who do not go up to celebrate the festival of shelters. This will be the punishment of Egypt and all the nations that do not go up to celebrate the festival of shelters. On that day, the words holy to the Lord will be on the bells of the horses. The pots in the house of the Lord will be like the sprinkling basins before the altar. Every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah will be holy to the Lord of armies. All who sacrifice will come and use the pots to cook in. And on that day there will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of armies. I cannot read today for some reason. But let's get to our questions. Question 1. Yeah. What does it mean that God's people will look on me, the one they pierced? And how does this point forward to Jesus? I think, let me get, sorry if you heard that. Okay. My computer was yelling at me. Here in chapter 12, We see in verse 10, then I will pour out a spirit of grace and prayer on the house of David and the residents of Jerusalem. They will look at me whom they pierced. They will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child, and weep bitterly for him as one weeps for a firstborn. So I think this is showing that the Jewish people are going to realize they killed God, and they're going to mourn over what they did. I think eventually this will happen. I think, and this is where some eschatology type stuff. There are different views on what exactly this is going to look like and what it's going to entail and all that. We don't have the time to get into all of that for this, but I do think a lot of people believe that eventually all of the Jewish people will come to realize that Jesus is God, right? It's going to be a unified thing. They're going to understand that he is God. Now, how and when that happens can kind of differ depending on what you believe as far as the end times. But I think that is a general thing. And so I think this is looking forward to that. If they realize that Jesus is God, they're also going to have to realize that it was their people who did this. Now, yes, technically that is true, but also Jesus went to the cross willingly, and he went to the cross for us. The Jewish people may have been the instrument to get him there, but it was all of our sin that sent him there. Question 2. How do these final chapters balance both God's judgment and his mercy? So we see in chapter 13, where is it at? So talking about there's a specific one I was looking for. I'm not seeing it. But I mean, we can see in verse down towards verse 8, it says, in the whole land, this is the Lord's declaration, 2/3 will be cut off and die, but 1/3 will be left in it. I will put this third through the fire. I will refine them as silver is refined, and test them as gold is tested. That is, I think the judgment can be the 2/3 will be cut off and die. The 1/3 that is brought through, yes, they're going to be put through the fire. Yes, they're going to be tested, but that is still that's merciful. They are coming through. They are being see. That's the thing. The fire, yes, it can be unpleasant. It can suck sometimes, but it's purifying. It makes the gold better. It makes the silver better. It makes us better. So just because you're going through the negative doesn't mean that it's judgment necessarily. It could be helping. We also see in the vine and the branches that if a branch produces fruit, it is I can't think of the word. Pruned. I don't know why that left me. prune so that it can produce more fruit. Well, that pruning process is cutting off excess. That's not a pleasant thing to go through. It's a difficult, hard thing to go through. But it allows you to produce more. It allows God to produce more through you. Question 3. In what ways does Zechariah's vision of the Lord reigning over the earth shape how we live in the present? Eventually, God is going to come back and he is going to reign on the earth, over the entire earth. And again, some of this may depend on how you view eschatology. I would say we should work towards trying to. Careful how I say this. We want to work towards trying to bring heaven to earth, right? Enact God's will on earth wherever we can. We want to be the hands and feet of God. We want to do his will. We want to be vessels. And this is where I think people that have a certain eschatological view can get bogged down by that view and not be as willing to go out and do things, witness to people, and try to push the gospel to others. Not all people, but I do think that is a thing that happens a good bit with a certain view. But that's what we should be doing now. That's how we should be living now. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as all those things help the channel grow. If this has been a blessing to you, you can share it with somebody else. It can be a blessing to them, and word of mouth is the best way that podcasts grow as well. So that can be something that helps this channel as well. Come back every single day. We're going to have more content every single day. Bible reading plan. We're going through the Bible an entire year, different teachings, all kinds of just really great biblical sound stuff like that. So you're not going to want to miss it. Come back, subscribe. Thanks. God bless.